lot of people say, write what you know. Wrong.
Hmm.
What did Shakespeare know about Verona? Or something's rotten in Denmark. You think he spent a lot of time in Denmark? Or The Merchant of Venice, was he like, did some research? I don't think so. No, don't write what you know about, write what you care about.
This episode is brought to you by Bulletproof Script Coverage, where screenwriters go to get their scripts read by top Hollywood professionals. Learn more at covermyscreenplay.com. I'd like to welcome to the show Herschel Weingrod. How you doing, Herschel?
Thank you very much. I'm doing well.
Thank
For
you
a
so much.
Friday.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, my friend. As I was telling you before, you single-handedly covered a lot of my childhood favorites in films as a screenwriter and as a producer, all through the 80s and 90s. So I, first of all, thank you. And we'll talk about those films as we continue our conversation. But man, you were hitting them out of the park pretty heavily.
Yeah, my writing partner, Tim Harris, and we had a really nice long run.
Without question. So my first question to you is, how did you get started in this business, and why in God's green earth did you want to get into this business?
Oh yeah, well, actually, it's kind of a negative goal because wanting to be a screenwriter is like wanting to be a co-pilot because you don't really get to fly the plane. But
that's really great analogy. I've never heard that analogy in many conversations. I've never heard. It's a beautiful analogy.
You can use it whenever you want. As an undergraduate, I actually majored in European history. And then around my senior year, I realized, oh, what am I going to do with this degree? Roam the stacks of some historical library and write some historical books and teach. Right. Oh yeah, I could be a professor. Great, really exciting. So actually around my junior year, I began to take as many film courses as I could. This was at University of Wisconsin-Madison. And then they didn't offer a lot, but they offered me some. And then I started to apply to film schools for postgraduate work. And it's a long story, but I was accepted at the London Film School in England.
Nice.
So I didn't know anybody there, of course. So I go there, and my instructors are Mike Lee.
Oh, you read my mind. I was like, is it Mike Lee?
Mike Lee, Charles Crichton, who did Fish Called Wanda and all those great Ealing comedies. Clive Donner, who did What's New Pussycat. Guy Hamilton, who did two of the first three Bond films with Sean Connery, and I had all these great instructors. So that was a great school because it's basically a trade school. You had to learn how to do everything. It's not an academic school where you had to write exams. You had to actually perform. You had to learn how to operate the camera, load the camera, be a producer, cut sound, cut film, do everything. So then what you do is then you try to focus on whatever makes you happiest, whatever you think you're really good at. So I actually wanted to be a DP, but there's no apprenticeship program for becoming a cinematographer in Los Angeles. The ASC doesn't have like
it's not a standard one. It's a unofficial one that you have to, but you've got to eat a lot of crow along the way.
Right. So I was in London for about three and a half years. And then I came to Los Angeles, and I realized that the only way I could get in was to write my way in to the film industry. So I was trying to write mysteries, thrillers, film noir, all the movies that I like to see. Okay. Chinatown-ish, 3 Days of the Condor-ish stories like that. So I was really fortunate because I had a neighbor who worked at British Lion EMI, and they were making The Deer Hunter, The Driver, and Convoy, and all those movies while I was working there. So what I would go on a Monday morning to their office, and I'd pick up a stack of scripts and manuscripts and novels and plays. And by the following Monday, I would have to write complete coverage on all of them. Now, of course, I'm 24 years old. All I want to do is get through the week so I could go enjoy the weekend. But every once in a while, I'm reading something that, regardless of what the subject matter was, the writer got me to want to turn the page and see what happens next. So I'm thinking, if I can learn how to do that, because you see, that's called the craft of screenwriting. Because if you're an aspiring writer, a first-time writer, you have to get your script by a reader like me, a well-educated 24, 25-year-old who just wants to get through the batch of scripts and get to the freaking weekend. So learning how to do transitions, learning how to set things up without, this is before all those rules and all those books, before Sid Field and certainly all those other guys.
Save the Cat and all that stuff, right?
Well, all those guys with the inciting incident in the mid-second act climax, and this has to happen on page X, Y, and Z. No. I actually learned that every story needs to find its own way to be told. Otherwise, we wouldn't have we'd never have a Charlie Kaufman.
Oh, well, you're talking about someone on the outskirts of Hollywood, structurally.
Right. But all those rules are rules how to write the next blockbuster, which as a first-time writer, you're not going to get to write any of the Mission Impossibles.
No, stop, soon. Herschel, stop it. You mean to tell me you're not going to get the next Marvel movie coming right out of school, or
no,
let alone if you even go to school? I've
never even gotten a hint of a Marvel movie assignment. Exactly. Because those aren't
not even a shorts, not even an episode of one of the shows.
Because those aren't written, they're actually manufactured. Nobody comes out of that and said, damn, what a great script that was.
The only one, if I may, is Winter Soldier, which was as close to, if you remember Winter Soldier, Captain America's Winter Soldier, that was like an espionage film. It was like, it was probably one of the best written out of all of them. But you're right. You don't go like, holy cow, that should get an Oscar this year. Like, it's not, it's what it is.
The subtext was so strong. I could tell right away that
subtext. But that's popcorn movies, and that's what they're supposed to do, and they're fun, and
listen,
all that kind of
those
stuff.
Those are all guilty pleasures which actually make the industry a lot of money and keep it going, so that more interesting films might eventually get made. So I was basically working in the studio system, and nobody would make those movies today. Look.
Oh, no. Anything in the 70s would get made today. The Godfather wouldn't get financed by a studio. No. Nothing in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Right.
Other than Batman.
Right. Okay. so look. No Hal Ashby movie would ever get made. No Being There. No
Scorsese's.
No Sidney Lumet. No One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Amadeus. You can forget all those.
All of them.
And those were brilliant studio films. Five easy pieces. Forget it.
Forget it. But that was the time. But those were the times that those movies were made. And they're still going back and minding those old IPs to remake them. Or bring them back up, because that's when they were when you were free to be creative. But now it's just such a corporate machine that.
Correct.
Look, right now you pull Marvel movies out of the theaters in 2022, other than Top Gun,
Right.
and possibly Avatar, well, more than likely Avatar when it comes out later this year. There's no theatrical. There's just nothing.
No,
like
I agree.
There's just no one's going to the theaters to go see a romantic comedy anymore.
No.
It's just very, very like Pretty Woman today would not be a theatrical release. It'd be a Netflix film.
Well, actually,
what do you think?
You would have to. Okay, so they tried to do a Broadway adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, you see, you can't have a hooker with a heart of gold at the center of a movie or a play because women won't stand for it anymore. Today, they won't. No, they won't.
But for whatever reason, in 91, I think it was something like that. Yeah, I think 91. It was a Disney movie.
Well, that's true. Gary Marshall.
It was a Touchstone film.
Yeah,
and but Gary just handled that so absolutely beautifully. It was just remarkable. But you go back and you look at it and go, that's not going to fly today. But no, a lot of things wouldn't fly today. Most things in the 80s and 90s wouldn't fly in today's.
I agree.
But that's where great cinema, a lot of the great cinema of the 70s, 80s, and 90s was because we still had filmmakers running the studios.
That's right.
They were making small movies. They were making $20 million movies. They're making $30 million movies. Now that's craft services.
Now that's the dedicated COVID supervisor.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's exactly what that is. It's the world has changed so much, which brings me to your filmography, which is such a wonderful, just so much love in those films that you made. And you wrote, starting with Trading Places, which was a little young guy, a little comedian. How old was he? Like 22 or 23? He was he was a kid. And Trading Places would never get made today.
Oh, never.
In a you could still try to throw Kevin Hart and The Rock in there. It's still not going to get the action. It's just not
because listen, I mean, we actually had a note from Paramount then, which would be the note today, which is, wait a minute, why is he pretending to be a crippled, legless Vietnam? I mean, is he, like that Adam Sandler guy who's trying to get money so his grandma can be put in the home or his sister can get an iron lung? So they asked us that, and we said, no.
He's
nobody.
A hustler.
The audience doesn't care what happened before the movie started. They only care about what happens next. So it doesn't matter why he's doing it. That's not what his character's about.
The thing I find so beautiful about Trading Places, and for all the youngins listening right now, Google Trading Places, Google Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd and John Landis. Google that, please, and then you'll have a reference point. But what I love about Trading Places was I don't know if it was Eddie's. Was that his first?
Second.
There was something else, right? Was that
the one he did with Nick Nolte for Walter Hill?
48 Hours. Excuse me.
48 Hours came out first.
Right? But then Trading Places came out, and then that was when Eddie just.
And then
number one,
Beverly Hills Cop and all those others.
Number one for I think 9 movies straight. He was number one every time he came out. But what I love about Trading Places is that, and this is something that was so much more done then than it is now in writing films, is that there's such a social commentary.
That's right.
In Trading Places, it's subtle but yet slightly heavy-handed in certain places, which I love. But at the end, it's hidden behind all the comedy of the genius of Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy and Jamie Lee Curtis and everything.
Well,
going on there. I mean,
the casting was fantastic.
Oh, the casting was fantastic. That
Al Franken.
Oh God, Jesus! It was just such a
Jim Belushi, Bo Diddley.
It was amazing. What an amazing cast. But I also wanted to ask you, since you have worked with a lot of amazing improvisers over the years,
sure.
How much of that script was Eddie just being Eddie, and how much it was you guys writing the dialogue?
I would say that 90% of what's on the screen, at least, was on the page.
Okay.
Now, what was great was, you see, this is unheard of. They had a week of rehearsal.
Just 1 week
of rehearsal, like it's a play.
They worked it all out.
Actual separate from pre-production. I mean, they had a week of rehearsal. So,
Jesus, they could play.
Eddie and Danny and Jamie Lee and all those characters, they're like running lines, and then they're riffing, and they came up with stuff that just made me and my partner look better.
Right, and you just wrote it down.
I mean, we didn't write the line where he says when the Duke brothers bail him out and he gets in the limo and they're doing the intros and he says, Billy Ray Valentine, Capricorn. but we did write Karate Man bruised on the inside.
Karate Man bruised on the. I mean, there's so many quotable things. Looking good, feeling good. Like it was like all that. There's a T-shirts. Like I've seen T-shirts with that. To this day, I still see T-shirts saying that.
Okay. So here's this early woke thing. So we wrote the line about when he brings all of his friends back to have a party. And they're dancing, and all of a sudden he realizes he's becoming middle class and very possessive of his new possessions. And he's saying, "Who put their cool out on my Persian carpet?"
That's right.
So people don't understand this kind of cultural context that cool menthol cigarettes were marketed primarily at Black people.
Yeah.
In fact, most of the people who smoke cools were Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And so Black people get that joke. And white people of a certain age get the joke as well. But Paramount said, no, you can't put that thing in about the cools. That's stereotype, blah, 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 blah. Well,
seriously?
So
that's the thing that took it over the top?
When we shot that scene, Eddie put it right back in anyway.
And it was fun.
And it stayed in. And it stayed in, of course.
Yeah, God. And I mean, when you did you go on set with John and Eddie and everybody? Were you on
What's
set?
That?
Were you
there.
on set? So what was it like being on the set watching Eddie? You could just see a superstar being born, literally. What was that like?
I could tell. Okay, let me do a little backtrack on. We had pitched Trading Places. We had it completely worked out, scene for scene, basically with lines. We could pitch it in 15 to 18 minutes, and we went to the head of production at Warner Brothers at the time because we had something else that was brewing over there. Maybe it had been optioned. Maybe it was going to get made. They liked us, so we go into the head of production. We pitch Trading Places, and he says, "It's funny, but if I can't get Richard Pryor, who can I cast?" And we said, Eddie Murphy on Saturday Night Live. This kid's a genius. And he said, I don't think he's going to be a movie star.
Of course. You always hear that. You're always like, who is this kid?
We went to Paramount to have a meeting with these producers they were pitching us the worst idea for a TV series ever. A white bigot moves into a house that's haunted by a Black ghost.
Oh,
horrible
Jesus.
idea.
Oh my God. That sounds horrible. Oh my God.
So I turned and looked at my partner and we said, should we pitch them Trading Places if they want a white-black story? So we pitched them Trading Places and they ran upstairs. They got us a deal to write it.
Well, this was on a pitch still.
This was on. Okay. And then what happened was, we were on the set of 48 Hours. We actually saw that famous scene where in that bar where Eddie says, I'm your worst nightmare.
Maybe a new sheriff in town, right?
Yeah, that and the N word with a badge. I'm your worst nightmare, that one. And then we met him briefly, and then we hear this laughter in his trailer because he's reading Trading Places.
Yeah, that.
Yeah,
everyone's got an impression of the old Eddie laugh.
So he got it right away. He loved it. And, you know, Dan Aykroyd was great because he's such a generous actor that he didn't mind being an a-hole for the first 2/3 of the movie. He's very smug. He's very unsympathetic. And only later he kind of turns and has a heart.
Right. I mean, and he played it beautifully. Just so beautifully. So, all right. So Trading Places comes out. It's a mega hit, you know, and you're basically, and it's a huge hit for the time. How does the town treat you after that? I always love asking that question. What was it?
How did what?
How did the town treat you? You're like the belle of the ball all of a sudden.
Well, we suddenly got a lot more offers than we had before. Put it that way. A lot more
phone calls coming in is what you're saying.
We had a lot of meetings.
Oh, you did the water bottle tool back then. It didn't have water bottles as much back then, but you know what I mean. But then afterwards, another classic film that I watched when I was a kid is Brewster's Millions.
Yeah, we did that next.
Right, with Richard Pryor.
Yes, and exactly.
What a beautifully high concept film. Like, it's just so, you get it in one sentence.
Correct.
That you sold a sentence essentially. Guy, but he has to spend it all in 30 days. Like, it's just, you have to win. You see, you win $1 million, but in order to get $100 million, you got to spend $1 million or something along those lines. It was so brilliant. And then Richard Pryor and Jackie, it was Jackie Gleason, right?
What?
Who was it? Was it Jackie Gleason was his co-star? Who was his co-star?
John Candy.
Not his partner. Wasn't there a bad guy? Who was the bad? I haven't seen that movie in years. Who was the bad guy? Because I know John Candy was like his buddy. I think wasn't it Gleason? I swear to God, I thought it was Gleason. Maybe in another universe.
The bad guys were, what's his name? Was trying to sabotage him because he kind of
it wasn't
took his
Jackie
girlfriend away.
It was John, but John Candy. So you have John Candy and Richard Pryor, and then that becomes a huge hit because now Richard is taking off as well, and it's
no. You see, what was really great about that was I don't want this to be like Stir Crazy or Silver Streak or my stand up. I don't want anything about race in it at all. I don't want it to be racial in the slide. I don't want anyone to mention race, and don't feel like you have to like ghetto up my dialogue or make me street or anything. All I am is a guy who just wanted to pitch in the big leagues against the Yankees. Yeah, that's it. That's great.
You know, the thing about that movie is it is the dream. You are tapping into the dream of so many people. Who doesn't want to win the lottery, you know, or a version of the lottery, an inheritance of some sort. And then you're forced to like spend it all.
Yes.
It's such an amazing, it's kind of like we all wish we could eat anything we want to eat and not gain any weight. Like that's a dream of,
right.
But not many people get the opportunity. Like, I really have to eat all the pie, all the pizza.
What was really, really fun was doing a bit of research to find ways creatively where he could spend a fortune and have nothing to show for it, like mailing a $1 million stamp.
Such a brilliant.
Now that's actually a real stamp, the inverted Jenny. You can look it up.
Sure,
it's a real stamp. And then the guy who comes in and says, "I'm going to tow an iceberg from the North Pole," and he has this great. And then when he runs for mayor as none of the above, vote for none of the above. Well, that was inspired. I was reading about these nuns in San Francisco banded, together, and they ran for, political office. They said, vote none of the above, N-U-N.
Oh, wow. Oh my God. Oh God. That's hilarious.
Or even that scene where there's train tracks running through the outfield.
Yeah.
I found that there was a minor league baseball field in Mexico where that actually happened every single day.
That's amazing. No, some of the stuff in that movie, I remember, like it's all coming back. Like as I saw it when I was young,
fun.
So much fun. And it was on cable 1,000 times. It was just one of those movies that you just kept watching again and again and again. And again, I'll ask you the same question. What's it like working with Richard Pryor, being on set with a legend, a genius?
Oh, he's great. I mean, he was kind of in the middle of all kinds of other stuff. So, but he was very kind. He was very professional. He was very funny. He was on time. He didn't have this huge entourage. He didn't act like a big shot.
That's
awesome. He didn't storm off to his trailer. And
that's amazing. Now, another film in the 80s that you worked on, which is, again, as high concept as you get, is Twins.
Yes, of course.
Which is, I mean, did you come up with that idea? Did you get brought into it? All right, so you get brought into it.
Yeah. It was a rewrite.
It was a rewrite deal because that I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito are twins. Go.
Well, Ivan Reitman said, okay, I have this script written by these two English guys. It's a really good premise. I really want to get it to Arnold and Danny, but I only have one shot. So I need it to be executed better and tailored for them better so that I could send it to them and try to get them on board. And I only have one shot. So do you guys have any ideas? So we're reading, it was called The Experiment at the time. Written by these two English guys who actually became really good friends of my writing partner and I. Anyway, so we're reading it and we come back and we say, yeah, Ivan, we can do X, Y, and Z, but basically we can solve the one big problem. He said, what's that? He said, they have to be looking for their mommy. If they're not looking for their mommy, you don't have a story. That's the heart. That's the heart of the story. Okay, they're separated at birth. They don't know anything about anything. And then they find out about this experiment and one's a genius and one's the bottom of the gene pool, allegedly. and this light bulb goes, I mean, okay, and then they have all these things in common and they bond and they find this thing, but then after that, it's not about that MacGuffin that's in Danny DeVito's trunk that has to do with some crime that I never figured out what that was. What it's about is it's about mommy. We have to find our mother.
You're absolutely right. It's about mommy. And again, that was a massive hit. I remember that in the video store. We had like 20 copies of it. It was massive, a massive.
Well,
hit.
the poster was.
It's
the one sheet,
But you're talking about the biggest movie star in the world at the time, Arnold. With Danny DeVito, who was a star in his own right, with Ivan Reitman as the director, who no slouch on his own. But from what I also heard the story, and you tell me if it's true, I'm sure it is, but that the studio really didn't have a lot of confidence in the movie, and that Arnold, Ivan, and Danny cut a deal for a percentage of the back end, which brought in the studio lost hundreds of millions or something like that.
They worked for scale plus 10.
Arnold.
Yes, because the studio didn't think that people would
see Arnold as a comedy.
Accept him in a comedy. And they weren't really confident. And so, and actually when we heard that Ivan, Arnold, and Danny were going to work for scale and just take a nice piece of the gross, we said, we'll do that. And the studio said, no. Well,
and
no, we can't do
writers,
that for a writer.
That sets precedence. We can't do something like that.
We can't do that.
By the way, from what I understand, the studio head after everything. I mean, I forgot what the numbers were pretty astronomical as far as what they got. The three of them got. It was pretty astronomical. And the studio head afterwards basically almost lost a job. I think he's like, because he was like, it's what it's like, signing over the sequel rights and merchandising for Star Wars. Like it's one of those things. But then they opened that door and they slammed it shut, and it never happened again. Not at that level. Because it was a massive cut. It wasn't like a little bit of the back end. It wasn't like Tom Cruise back end or Jack Nicholson on Batman back end. It's a massive chunk, like 15%, something like that.
It was basically first dollar gross.
On top of that, it wasn't even that. It was gross. And that thing made a lot of money.
Yeah, it was gross.
So much money they made off that. But I'm good for them. And then, of course, you follow that up with another classic, Mr. Kindergarten Cop, which is another insanely high concept. Arnold's a kindergarten teacher. Go.
Yeah. Yes.
He's an undercover cop, kindergarten teacher. Go.
That was a rewrite too. And
Ivan brought you guys in for that rewrite.
Yeah.
I have to ask, what's it like working with Ivan, man? He, God rest his soul. He was just this amazing talent over the years. I mean, let's not even talk about Ghostbusters and everything else he's done.
Well, yeah.
But what was it like? Because you collaborated with multiple films. What was it like collaborating with him?
Well, Ivan had a very sentimental streak, which you kind of see in his films.
Yeah,
of course. And he also had a tendency to have, multiple unearned endings. So or multi-earned multiple endings. So what was nice about him was you could talk him out of something.
Interesting.
So he was willing to listen and, collaborate. And if you could convince him that your idea would play a little better than what he had in mind, he'd say, okay, go ahead, try it. So we did.
That's a good collaborator.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, he was great about that.
That's a very good collaborator. And then, of course,
actually, I think he was a much better producer than he was a director. I think his son's a better director, pure and simple. But Ivan knew where the jokes were.
He did.
And Ivan knew how to make a movie that would be very successful and very accessible at the same time. And all of his movies have heart, if you will. They're all ultimately very heartwarming. They're not cynical.
Right.
They're not. Dave is a wonderful film, by the way.
Oh, Dave is actually, it really is probably on his filmography, one of the masterpieces that he created.
Dave is a wonderful film.
It is. It really is. Yeah. Junior was another fun one.
We passed on Junior.
You said, I can't write a pregnant Arnold.
No, we said, look, if people didn't think an audience would accept Arnold in a comedy, how do you think men and women will think of if Arnold is a pregnant guy? His male fans will hate it, and women fans will just be horrified.
So
we said no. So,
that movie gets financed today by the studio. You think?
It what?
You think that movie gets financed today by the studios?
Oh, of course not. No, but
it wouldn't even get a Netflix release.
Curiously, when Arnold was making True Lies for Cameron,
mm-hmm.
he demanded that Cameron bring us in to do a dialogue polish for him. Get those guys who wrote Twins and Kindergarten Cop. I want them to rewrite my lines now.
How did that work out? Did you do that? Did you do a little?
Yes, it was fun.
Okay.
It was uncredited, but we got to work with Cameron and all those people again. It was great.
How do you work with Cameron as a writer? Because he's arguably he's one of the greatest screenwriters of his day.
No, he was fine. He was fine. He had he had that plane. He had mock-ups of that plane in his office, and he's showing us all the great technical stuff. And
you're there for jokes. And you're there for jokes.
yeah, we're just there to do a polish, and he used a lot of it. He didn't use, some of it. And we just, we were on it for like a few weeks. It was fun.
Oh my God, that was fun.
It's a really good movie. Oh, and of course we knew Jamie Lee, and
right.
And I knew Jim a little bit because I knew Linda Hamilton because okay, this is 6 degrees from Trading Places. So one of the guys who was a location scout on Trading Places was from Philadelphia, and he became Linda Hamilton's assistant on Beauty and the Beast. So
it's a small town. Small town.
He and I became friends, and then I met Linda, and then I have been friends with Ron Perlman ever since.
It's a small business.
I'd love to work with Ronnie. Ron Perlman's great. Hellboy is one of my favorites.
And what Guillermo did with Hellboy is just, I mean, those are masterpiece films. On a side note, with Kindergarten Cop, I did get to direct when I was directing a film, Mr. Richard Tyson.
I love Richard Tyson.
Richard is amazing, and he still tells me to this day, he goes, I still have adults your age come up to me and go, or not your age, maybe younger than you, who come up to me and like, you ruined my childhood, because he was terrifying. He was
scary.
Because it's not a monster. That's just a dad who wants his kid, and the mother, and oh my God,
the mom
was much worse.
She was really scary.
Oh, she sounded like oh God, I feel like she had was giving that kid Munchausen syndrome. Like, I mean, it was like you could tell it was just but yeah, Richard played that part so well.
Richard's from either Alabama or Louisiana, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, he's out there. Yeah, and he did. I think his before that was 3 O'clock High, Two Moon Junction.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, those days of those movies, and then but he's like, no, it's Kindergarten Cop. To this day, I walk around and people go, you. Because Kindergarten Cop's one of those movies that everybody's seen or has been, my kids saw it the other day for the first time.
Oh, nice.
And they were terrified by it.
Really?
I'm like, no, I work with Richard. He's a nice guy. I know, but why is he taking the baby? Why is he taking the kid?
He's an actor.
He's an actor. Oh God, don't even get me started when I had to explain to them and that Pennywise was actually an actor. And we had to show him how he's getting made up. And they were terrified. Terrified. So there was I wanted to ask you, since you've worked with so many amazing collaborators, is there any lesson that sticks out over the years that you learned from any of the collaborators you've worked with, whether director, actor, or other writers? Lessons about writing, lessons about storytelling, lessons about the business.
I had a really long and happy collaboration with my writing partner. And one of the reasons for that was we were friends and close friends long before we ever started working together. And actually, we saw the world the same way, which is to say, the same things made us laugh, the same things made us sad, the same things made us angry. Okay, we have the exact same worldview. We like the same books, we like the same music, we like the same girls, we like the same everything. We met by accident. I was in film school in London. He was at Cambridge University. He was a published novelist while at Cambridge.
Obviously.
Not bad. And we met by accident in a little village in the south of Crete, where I had gone for a week or two with my English girlfriend just to get away from the bad weather in England. We wanted to go to the furthest point in Europe in September, where it might be still warm. So we go to this village in the south of Crete called Myrtos, on the Libyan Sea, right across from North Africa.
Mm-hmm. And you guys
there's no hotels, there's no motels. You walk into a a post office or some taverna when you get off the bus and you try to have your Greek handbook and you say in Greek, does anyone have a room for let? And then suddenly somebody will come around and rent you a room in a house for $50 a week. And she threw in breakfast. She said, I'll throw in breakfast. You speak to me in English, I'll speak to you in Greek. We'll both learn each other's languages. So
Brilliant.
I'm wandering around there and I walk into this little bar and there's some long-haired looking hippie there. It's Tim Harris. He's there with his English girlfriend. We're both Americans living in England, in London, basically. And then we became friends. And then we wound up back in Los Angeles because he was actually born here. And then his novels were all mysteries and thrillers, just like all of the scripts that I was writing, exactly the same. So how did this happen? So one of his books got optioned and we're waiting around to see if we can get a deal to write the script. And he said, I have this girlfriend. She works for this law firm near the airport. All the lawyers are female. They only represent female clients who are getting divorced and suspect that their husbands are hiding their assets. So he says, I got this great idea. So you take that concept and then you have them hire a male private eye to rat out his own gender by finding the hidden assets of other guys. Now, that's a funny idea.
It is. Is it funny?
And they made it. It's a really bad movie.
Is it really?
It was a really, okay, that was actually our first film. It's called Cheaper to Keep Her.
Yeah.
So the producer was this guy who did one of those early Gabe Kaplan movies.
Oh God, Jesus! Wow, you're going back, Gabe Kaplan.
Yeah, yeah.
Holy cow!
So,
oh Jesus,
he was this clothing guy from Dallas or something, and he was sending the script around to agencies, and he was offered George Segal and Candice Bergen.
That would have been interesting.
For our script. And he said, no, Mac Davis and Tova Felcher.
So he became huge in the business, this guy. And,
what's that?
And he became huge in the business as running Hollywood as we speak.
Mac Davis and Tova Felcher.
Of course.
Anyway, so the good news is, and he hired a British director named Ken Anakin who did World War II movies. He had a tin ear for U.S. dialogue, American dialogue.
So it was just a win-win-win all around.
Yeah. So anyway, before this movie comes out, of course, it's in the trades. It's been announced. These guys wrote this comedy script. It's really funny. It's going around. It's getting made. And all of a sudden, we're getting meetings and getting offered because now we're comedy guys.
They have to put you in a box.
Exactly.
Which brings me to my next question. You produced another film in the 90s that I absolutely love, which is so off your filmography.
I'm so proud of it.
It's Falling Down with Michael Douglas. Yeah. I remember that trailer was so brilliant. I remember going to the theater opening night and watching that, and I was just blown away. It was a Joel Schumacher film, and
yes.
Can you imagine that film today getting released by its studio? Can you imagine?
It's actually prescient. It's angry. It's angry white guy.
It's the angry white guy. He's but he's like angry.
He's a Trumpist. He's a Trumpist.
He's angry. It is such a brilliant film. And Michael Douglas played it. It's like, why can't I have breakfast?
Yeah,
it's 10:05. We stop breakfast. It's right there. Just put some eggs on. What's wrong with you people?
I don't want to be your friend, Rick. I just want some breakfast.
Right. It's like those. So how did you get involved with a film like that, being, the comedy guys?
Okay, so we had an office at Universal. We had a deal at Universal. We had to write a certain number of films a year for a couple of years. So we would bring them ideas, they bring us ideas, and we go to work. We we'll find things that we want to do or that they want to do, and we'll do it. So they also gave us a little, housekeeping producer thing, first look, production deal, which also entailed they hired an assistant for us who's going around town reading scripts that, from the smaller agencies, right? So, every weekend he finds a couple of scripts and we go home, take him home to read them. And he gave us Falling Down. And I'm reading it. And I said, God damn it, I wish I would have written this. This is so good. Now I have to get it made. And Tim agreed with me. And we went into Universal and they said no. And then we said, okay. We went to Warner Brothers. And they told us at Warner Brothers that Arnold Kopelson had been trying to get it made. He had optioned it originally. Apparently the option had expired, but he was going to renew it because he couldn't get it made as a feature. He was, check this out. He was trying to set it up at HBO, which was a Warner company, with Brian Dennehy in the Michael Douglas.
I mean,
not bad, but
I mean, I'm not angry at it. I mean, it's a different film.
Yeah,
but Brian Dennehy could have pulled off a version of that film.
Not exactly Peter Boyle.
No, no. But
in Joe.
Right, of course. Right. But I think he would have done something with it. It would have been interesting. But it's not Michael Douglas.
No. Okay. So we go and talk. We meet a couple of younger producers, up and coming people at Warner's, Lisa Henson and Lorenzo Di Bonaventura, who both became gigantic producers.
I was going to say, I've heard those names.
And they really loved Falling Down. And they began to send it out to all these A-list directors, Peter Weir and guys like that. And nobody wanted to do it. Finally, they got it to CAA, and CAA represented Michael Douglas and Joel Schumacher, and some other people in the cast, not Robert Duvall, but they basically packaged it. So Joel, I think, was the godfather of one of Bruce Berman's children, and Bruce was head of production at Warner's. So he brings Joel in, and Joel wants to do it. And Joel had never done anything like this before.
Did DC Cab. I remember.
Flatliners.
He did Flatliners.
I like Flatliners.
I love Flatliners. I love DC Cab. Okay, I have just a small
DC Cab, and then that vampire thing that he did. Younger.
What was the vampire one he did? Oh God.
Wasn't there a young vampire thing he did? I don't know. But you see,
who knows?
Joel's films were mostly about
Lost Boys. What am I?
Yeah, Lost Boys.
Another classic, Lost Boys.
Yeah, Lost Boys. So Joel's very stylish surfaces. Mm-hmm. He had a really, really good eye. I mean, Joel was a window dresser at Henry Bendel's in New York.
I know.
Before he got into movies.
Right.
Anyways,
but Falling Down, that was the one thing I remember from Falling Down, is the color grading on that. The color timing on that film was gorgeous. That red orangey LA, you can smell the air, that toxic air of LA.
That first scene on the Harbor Freeway with the honking and that's all out, that's like right out of Fellini.
Right.
It is.
It is. You're right. You're absolutely right. It's a brilliant. Well, now I know the story because I was going through your filmography. I'm like, get the hell. How did these guys?
Okay. So, but unfortunately, Warner said, but you see, okay, look, you guys can produce it, but Arnold Kopelson still has to be on board because you see, he had it first, but more importantly, he's just finished a film for us that we're releasing next year that we think is going to be really successful. So we don't want to offend him. It's called The Fugitive.
Fugitive. I knew it. I knew it. No, I knew where you were going with it.
Okay, so they partner us up with Arnold, the late Arnold Kopelson.
Yes.
And we're in charge of, okay, there are some notes from the studio and from Joel about revisions, which we then give to the writer, who's a really smart guy, Ebby Bro Smith. He was an actor before that and a playwright. And he actually executed them even better than what we could have imagined. But then we give that version to Arnold. Arnold sends it out, a title page, only his name is on it as the producer, which he continued to do all the way through the production, all the way through the credits. He had the credits shot, produced by Arnold Kopelson, and then there's the next card says Herschel Weingrod and Timothy Harris. It doesn't say produced by.
So you just had your names on it, but no credit.
Yeah. Okay, so then
it's so Hollywood.
All the way through, he's trying to cut us out. You see, I mean, we were on that set. He was on the set every day, but I mean, anyway. So so I get on the okay. We get a big time lawyer who has deals with Warner Brothers. Name will go unnamed. Our law firm at the time, and we get Warner Brothers on the phone about going to have to reshoot the credits because contractually it says we have a separate card that says produced by. Well, they say, look, we have a policy. We don't have separate producer cards for every single producer. And I said, well, Mark, you should look at your film, Glengarry Glen Ross, sometime.
Right.
Because there are separate cards for every single producer on that. I love the movie, by the way. I love it. So if you did it not too long ago, you can do it again. So they had to reshoot the credits. But once again, now it says produced by Arnold Kopelson. The next card says, and Herschel Weingrod and Timothy Harris. But
so you still didn't get a produced by?
Well, but listen to this. But Joel was so upset that he had to go back in and reshoot the credits. He said, I don't understand. You guys, your credit is right before mine. I said, yeah, Joel, but yours says directed by. What if your card just came up and said Joel Schumacher? What, craft services? Maybe it's craft services. Written by, produced by, and then Joel Schumacher. Well, what did that guy do? Doesn't say. He was pissed.
Oh my God.
Another late Joel Schumacher. I've worked with a lot of people who are no longer here, but
so you could talk. You could talk all sorts of smack. It's great. No,
Gleason, Paul Gleason from Trading Places and Breakfast Club. I think.
Oh, good Lord. Now I have a very serious question for you about one of your other projects. How could you write dialogue for Bugs Bunny, Porky Pig, and Michael Jordan all in one script? That's a skill set, sir.
Okay, so I had to watch about 20 years of Looney Tune cartoons
to get the cadence.
Just to get the ear right about how each of these characters speak and how they behave.
Right.
You know, I mean, I mean, I have a pretty good ear. I mean, I thought I throw a putty tat and all that kind of stuff. I can do that. I can do Daffy and I can do Bugs, Porky Pig, Elmer Fudd.
By the way, before you continue, we're talking about Space Jam, the original. That's what, for anybody listening, like, what is he talking about? It's the movie Space Jam, very big hit with a little known basketball player named Michael Jordan.
Yes. So Warner Brothers, they actually have a Looney Tune police department where if you're gonna do if you're gonna use any Looney Tunes characters, they're gonna read it. They'll say, nope, he'd never say that. Bugs would never say that. Bugs would never do that. And I had to point out, well, actually, in this cartoon, he did say that.
Because you did the research.
Yeah, I had to do some research, but it was a lot of fun. That was also a rewrite, and we didn't have an ending until Michael Jordan decided to retire from minor league baseball and go back to the NBA, and all of a sudden, all of our problems were solved.
Right, because exactly. So he helped you with the ending, essentially.
Oh, of course. He wrote it for us.
And that was another massive, I mean, that was a pretty massive hit for Warner Brothers. Yeah. Very, very massive hit. And I argue it was a little bit better than the remake. That's just my personal opinion. I was forced to watch the remake with my children. When it came out, it was during the pandemic when it came out, so to be fair. But the thing about, you also, with that movie, it was directed by another legendary director, Mr. Joe Pytka. Now, before we continue,
yes,
I have 100 Joe Pytka stories that I
love him.
If you can say any Joe Pytka story publicly,
that's
if we could talk about it offline or over a drink at the Austin Film Festival. But is there anything you can say publicly? Because Joe is an infamous director who is one of the most talented commercial directors, arguably in history, up there with Ridley Scott and David Fincher and those kind of. I mean, he had
a reputation when he worked on commercials of having a temper and a little bit and verbally abusing people. And he's like 6'8" and Polish guy from Pittsburgh with long hair.
He's a very large, imposing
man. That's right.
And he was, I was working when I got started in the business as a director, I came up as a commercial director in the commercial business.
Oh, yeah.
So I just heard we're talking about the mid 90s to late 90s, early 2000s. Joe Pytka he
was great to us.
So did he work? Was it a little bit different in the feature film world? I didn't hear anything about how he worked in the feature film
nothing.
world.
I mean, nothing bad happened at all. I mean, he was a teddy bear.
Is he really? It was just a commercial. It's just the clients he didn't like.
And he was great. And well, I mean, okay, I can say something nice later on. He and his wife, they opened this incredible, I think, French restaurant. It's like a gourmet chef. His wife is, I think.
Right.
And he's this huge gourmet of French food. I mean, high-end Michelin star stuff back in the day.
And he was brought on because he did the commercial versions of, wasn't there the commercial versions of Bugs Bunny and that at one point?
Came out of some McDonald's commercials, I think, with Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan.
Right.
Or maybe it was Coca-Cola. It was something like that. And those were so popular that all of a sudden, look, Warner's had not made a feature with the Looney Tunes in, I don't know, 40 years.
Right.
Since World War II, probably. One of those propaganda features.
And they brought Joe, and that's such a classic studio thing. Like, who did the commercials? Let's get him to do the feature. Because he had never done a feature before. He never directed a feature before.
Correct.
So it was just, but he did like every Super Bowl commercial. Like, he was the biggest commercial director in the world.
I mean, okay, so here's a really good story. So when they brought us on, okay, so Michael Jordan's agent, David Falk, was one of the big movers of this project. And he represented a lot of other great NBA players. So anyway, they come to us and they say, okay, so we love your script, we love your rewrite. But okay, so casting. So who do you want to be the Monstars? What's your wish list? They said, well, Charles Barkley. They said, done. How about Patrick Ewing? Done. Muggsy Bogues, he's short, funny, done. Sean Bradley, 7'6", called the Stick, the big skinny white guy from BYU. Yeah, you can have him. Okay, so who's Michael playing? Who's Michael playing golf with in that? When he like falls down the hole. I said, Bill Murray and Larry Bird. Done. What?
By the way, it's so funny. I'm literally in the middle of watching Last Dance again because I just love that documentary. It's yeah, amazing. And watching those guys, I'm like, as we're talking, all those guys are fresh in my mind because I see them on the Dream Team and
yeah.
And I just saw the new documentary, The Redeem Team, on Netflix, which is all about when we lost the Olympics and then the year after
Right.
Kobe went back with the other ones and won it again and what they had to do. But it's those guys were just. It was a different time. It was just such a different time back then.
We actually went to that golf course. It was in Lake Arrowhead when they shot that scene. It was really fun.
So you were there with Larry?
Talk about improvising. Bill Murray was a great improviser.
Bill Murray.
Is a great improviser. See, because he actually wrote the line. Okay, so when he's trying to hit up Michael and saying, look, you think I could, look, I can dribble and I can't jump that great, but I can shoot. I mean, do you think there's any chance I can make it in the NBA? And Michael Jordan says, no. He says, and Bill says, it's because I'm white, right? He said, Larry's white. He says, Larry's not white, Mike. Larry's clear. Bill Murray made that up. It was great.
What a great line.
Larry's not white, Mike. Larry's clear.
Clear. He's translucent. Herschel, I could keep talking to you for hours, my friend. I'm going to ask you a few questions. I ask all of my guests. What advice would you give a screenwriter trying to break into the business today?
I keep a little Post-it on my desk. It goes something like this. Inspiration is for amateurs. Sit down, shut up, and get to work.
It's a good piece of advice. It's a good piece of advice.
Well, the other one is a lot of people say, write what you know. Wrong. Mm-hmm. What did Shakespeare know about Verona? Or something's rotten in Denmark. You think he spent a lot of time in Denmark? Or The Merchant of Venice, was he did some research? I don't think so. No, don't write what you know about, write what you care about.
And 3 of your favorite films of all time.
Vertigo. Mm-hmm. Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, so good. Yeah.
Dog Day Afternoon.
I mean, you can't go wrong with any of those, my friend. Those are all good ones to have on the list without question.
But I mean, I have dozens.
I mean, hundreds of hundreds. But yeah, those are the 3 that come up today. And so one other thing, you and I are both going to be at the little film festival the Austin Film Festival,
yes,
here in Austin, coming up in the month. I love your story. You told me off air. Can you tell me how you got involved with the Austin Film Festival all those years ago?
Well, I was reading about how there's this film festival in Austin. It's the only one that's devoted to screenwriting. So I thought, well, I'd like to go and be a part of that, at least watch it. So I found the name of the founder, and she's actually still running it, Barbara Morgan. She's fantastic. And I wrote her and I introduced myself and I said, look, your festival sounds fantastic. I'm very supportive. I'd like to volunteer my services. I'll fly myself out and put myself up. And if you want to put me on some panels or something, I'd like to be involved and see what it's like. And she said, okay. And that was about 2003, and I've been going ever since.
They can't get rid of you.
With a couple of little breaks, they keep asking me back.
They can't get rid of you.
Oh, they have good. Listen, there's a barbecue pit in the airport. So how bad could it be? The Salt Lick is right there, and that's not even Austin's best, but it's pretty good.
It's, from what I hear, it's one of the best barbecues out here.
Yeah,
no question. So yeah, I mean, there's worse places to go, is what you're saying.
well, I mean, the other thing that's great about Austin is it's like nowhere in Texas.
Nowhere in Texas is
It's
like
like
Austin.
you're in Berkeley.
Exactly. People are like, "Oh, you moved to Texas." I go, "No. I moved to Austin.
Austin,
Completely different world." It's like,
well, I mean, I mean, you're there, so, but I mean, other people don't know. I mean, you walk into a local gift store, even in the airport, the hats and the T-shirts say "Keep Austin Weird."
absolutely, and bat, and something about the bats, and something. It's a hippie. It's like we're all the crazy creative artists of the last 50 years, 60 years
Correct.
in Texas, all gravitated to that. It is Berkeley. It is it's the San Francisco of Texas.
Yes, it's Berkeley. It's Ann Arbor back in the day, I suppose, once upon a time.
I mean, for anybody who's ever been to Miami, it's a little bit different than Gainesville. Or the rest of or the rest of Florida is a general statement. Miami, slightly different.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't see a lot of rednecks in Austin.
Not much. No.
You gotta go. You have to go out to the hill country, I suppose. You go out to
farther.
further.
But listen, Herschel, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. I look forward to catching up with you here in Austin when you come for the Austin Film Festival. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of so many amazing films that have helped shaped my youth, my friend. So I appreciate you so much, man.
Thank you, my friend. I enjoyed it.